So, in this podcast, are we actually going to have any banter?
No, we're not. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Your Time Starts Now, a Taskmaster podcast. I'm Emerson,
And I'm Joseph.
and in this podcast, we are going to be breaking down the panel/game show Taskmaster, everything entails, what we like, what we didn't like, uh, and all else surrounding that. But should I explain what Taskmaster is first, Joseph?
Yes, I do think you should explain what Taskmaster is.
Okay, so Taskmaster is a British panel/game show in which every series five extremely funny and talented comedians are brought in, and they just do a bunch of tasks for no real purpose other than to make us laugh, and also for bragging rights. And
I
my
would not put as much emphasis on talented, considering some of the things they've done in this show. But yeah, let's go with that.
God, this isn't staying in, is it? Um,
It might. It might.
I mean, who knows at this point? So, yeah, what we're going to do is we will, as I mentioned before, we will just break down the show. We will talk about the tasks individually, what we liked, what we didn't like. I'm basically just repeating myself here. Let's just get right in, shall we?
Yeah. So Taskmaster is broken down into three pre-recorded tasks: a prize task at the beginning of the show and a live task at the end of the show. All the tasks are performed at the whim of Greg Davies, the host of the show, and are executed by his sniveling assistant Alex Horn. In this series, we have Frank Skinner, Josh Widdicombe, Roisin, Romesh Ranganathan, and Tim Keefe. Supposed comedians, supposedly talented, and I don't know who any of them are outside of the context of this show and Mock the Week. So why don't we have you, Emerson, explain to our listeners who they are?
Um, I think the listeners will actually be more interested in who we are before they find out who our contestants are as more people. Do you think?
I think so.
Okay, so
So who are you, Emerson?
Who who is Emerson? Good question. I'm Emerson. I am. God, this feels like I'm at an AA meeting. Hi, I'm Emerson, and I'm an alcoholic. And then we all say, "Hi, Emerson." Um,
Hi, Emerson.
okay, so my name's Emerson. I am from, as you can tell by my voice, I'm from the UK. I'm nearing the end of my teenage years, and I don't know much about life in general, really. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background.
That's fine. If you want to redo it or not,
Oh
just
no, let's keep it in. We're basically just fucking amateurs at this point. So,
oh yeah, no, this is going to be great when we're doing like the season 8 podcast and we have like an intro and a live band or something.
oh god, yeah. So we'll keep it like this so we can hear if we keep going how far we've come. Okay, and you can
Yeah,
if you are still with us, thank you. We're only
thank you so much.
I don't know how far into this podcast we are, but thank you for still listening. We are not desperate.
Thank
But anyway,
You're not desperate.
that's a bit about me. So of course I'm British. I'm nearing the end of my teenage years. Joseph, who are you?
Hi, I'm Joseph. You can call
Hi,
me Joe,
Joseph. Hi, Joseph. But
and
you can
I'm
call me
addicted
Joe.
to Hi, I'm Joseph, and I'm addicted to electronics and old trains, which and that's what I do in my off time is I collect old electronics and take pictures of them for Instagram, and I take pictures of trains for Instagram. And Emerson and I met through the Taskmaster subreddit on Reddit. As for me, I am a little bit older than Emerson, and every day he says that he's a teenager, I feel increasingly like an old crone. I am, as you can tell by my accent, I'm actually French. You'll never believe this, but I'm recording from the third arrondissement of Paris, which somehow is in the middle of rural Ohio. So there's that. I can look out my window and see the Eiffel Tower cleverly disguised as a telephone pole.
He
And
actually can.
and meanwhile, I I got in. Do we want to talk about how we got into Taskmaster? Because I got into Taskmaster through YouTube late last year. Not last year, in 2019 now, because 2020 happens to us all.
Oh,
They
boo.
started putting the Taskmaster. They started putting the Taskmaster episodes on YouTube onto, and they stopped region locking them, which that's very nice because as an American, I can tell you very straight away that we have a much different way of showing television episodes after they've aired, which is fuck you, pay us, in which television companies will just not let you watch them unless you have a subscription to their cable services, which I'm fortunate to have because my parents pay for cable, but you listeners at home who probably have a Spotify subscription are SOL.
Can I just say, I at this point in time, we're recording this on the 8th of January.
January 8th, 2021.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, I'm going to be 20 this year. That's scary to think about. But at this point in time, I do not have a Spotify subscription. I deleted it because it was
I
getting too
do. It's
expensive. So I didn't get the
I
your year wrapped thing or whatever the hell it was.
Do they only give that to you if you pay?
It's if you have an
I didn't know
account and
that.
listen to music.
I've my I just assumed everyone got it, but yeah, I pay for Spotify because if I have to I've had Sirius XM satellite radio in my car for 10 years, and if I have to listen to commercials while listening to music, someone is going to die, and it certainly isn't going to be me. So I just pay for that. And my Spotify year in review was ABBA, uh, ABBA, um, oh god, Howard Jones, the Bee Gees, OPP by Naughty by Nature, and then Supertramp. So it's a lot of songs, and then one that's not like the other.
Um, in case you can't
As
tell,
far as
Joe.
music tastes
In
go,
case you can't tell, Joe likes to talk a lot because he's American and that's what they do.
I
Were you going to interrupt me?
no, I wasn't actually because nothing you've said is wrong. Also, it should be noted that I am a statistical outlier and should not be counted because I am a class A extrovert who would probably make any British person explode from internalized tutting if I spoke to them for any in person for any lengthy period of time just because I will not shut up.
Oh yeah, yeah. You probably will. I
Like,
mean, I love you, Joe, but we've spoken multiple times, and I've wanted you to shut up on multiple occasions. I'm
well, you
sorry.
need to tell me that. You need to move along. You need to say moving along in the conversation because otherwise this
I
recording
don't
will
have
get to
the
the 3 hour mark and it will be
I don't have the heart to tell you
and
to
this will
shut
be
up.
me. Well, then just very politely say moving along to the show because otherwise we're going to be talking about Thomas the Tank Engine for 3 hours
Don't you get started on that.
because I am an adult theoretically.
Um, I should stress you might remember my name is Emerson. If my name sounds familiar to you, it is because I asked the pants on a stick question in the James Acaster episode of the official Taskmaster podcast, hosted by Ed Gamble. And I should say right now, Ed Gamble, you may have launched your podcast before we launched ours. Sorry, this is a group project. It's not. But Ed
I
Gamble,
suggested the name, I'll have you know.
yes, I did suggest the name, but Ed Gamble, we did think of our podcast before you even thought to host yours. So if you want to come onto the podcast to defend yourself, please drop us an email. We will mention it at the end. Um, what
And
else?
we've got the Reddit post to prove it.
Oh
Gamble,
yeah.
come at me, bro.
And also this is the unofficial Taskmaster podcast. We are the people's Taskmaster podcast. We listen to the people. We no one.
We're in a former lightship in the English Channel, basically. We're pirate. We're Radio Caroline.
Oh God, yes. I mean, we. Sorry, I've completely lost my train of thought. We are
Pirate
the people's podcast. I
Radio.
already said that. Shitting hell. in case you cannot tell, we are podcast experts.
Uh-huh.
We are the People's
I
Taskmaster podcast. We love the people. Um, the official Taskmaster podcast doesn't have banter that goes on this long before the show. It doesn't talk about. Actually, it kind of does, but it
I haven't watched the official Taskmaster podcast, just so you
you
know.
don't watch
I figured if I was
you don't watch a podcast, you listen to it.
For the record, I do watch podcasts because there's another podcast with slides that puts up on YouTube, and it's very inconvenient to listen to it because they make jokes about what's on the slides. So there are definitely podcasts I watch. But if we can move in some semblance of a direction towards the show that we're ostensibly talking about,
Hey,
Taskmaster is
Joseph,
a
I'm the
British.
host here.
Yeah.
I'm the host, not you.
Then
It's
you
fun
need
when
to
the
tell
young
me
people.
when we need to move on.
We
Okay,
are
hold on,
doing it
hold on.
now.
I heard you say it's fun when the young people do this. Boy, you are 4 years younger than me. I am the adult.
No, you're not.
Sure, let's go with that for right now. Let's move on. What were you saying?
So, as I was saying, and you're damn right I was saying it first, just to clarify, any mean-spiritedness between us is totally for the sake of the podcast and making.
Oh yeah, no, this is totally for the sake of comedy, although the lack of a visual element means that I'm resorted to glaring at my microphone instead of at you because we're not doing this on a video call.
Yep. If I'll make this the last point, and now that I say it's the last point before we talk about the show, it probably won't be the last point before we talk about the show. But should we just say like you could just say like your emotion as you say the thing. So like I'll say something and you'll be like, Joe angry.
Actually, I wrote like that in my notes for this, so we can go through this. But if you want me to just go into the microphone like this and say, Joe upset, I
Oh
can.
my god.
I saw the waveform on Zencaster. How did that sound?
If you were listening to that, I am so sorry. I did not tell him to do that.
I thought it was going to go close into the microphone. Oh my god.
Well, if it doesn't come out if the audio doesn't come out all fucked up, you won't understand. But basically, when he did that, it was like 100 times bass boosted into my ears, and I nearly took my headphones off.
I'm sorry. Let's move on with the show before I kill you.
You couldn't kill me even if you tried. I may be younger than you, but I'm
transatlantic assassination.
You may be older than me, but I'm taller than you. But that's a story for another day. Now,
how tall are you? Before we do that, how tall are you? Because I am 6'2".
Oh, well, I'm 6'3". I'm still taller than you, but you probably could take me on. But like I said, that's a story for another day.
Yeah, many days. Yes.
Okay, so now after God knows how long, we are finally going to talk about.
It's been at least 20 minutes.
We were thinking about editing this down for the Patreon's sake, but I think it will be less funny if we do that. So we're going to basically just keep the whole thing at this point. We don't know if we'll have a Patreon yet. We don't at the moment. We might set up one later, but keep an eye out for that.
It'll be really funny if we don't, and we just keep referencing the Patreon.
It would. Okay, now time to talk about Taskmaster Series 1. After God knows how long, we are finally here. So, contestants, we have Frank Skinner, who's slightly old because that's what the show wants to make it out to be. Basically, he's the old guy. Josh Widdicombe, who's basically treated the total opposite of Frank on the show. He's the youngest competitor. Having said that, he was born at least 18 years before I was, so oh well. Then there's Roisin Connerty. Don't know how to describe her.
Who is one of Greg's? She's one of Greg's friends and a disaster.
Oh yeah, she was in she starred alongside Greg in a show called Man Down, which you might hate me for this, but I've not seen it yet because I've got too many things
I
on my
haven't
mind.
either. I haven't either. So we can just make references to it, and then we'll be wrong, and then people will comment and drive our interaction numbers.
Indeed,
It's still
indeed.
content.
And contestant number 4 is Romesh Ranganathan. People will know him for being
The angriest
livid.
man in.
In in the words of Greg Davis, a man who is as angry as his beard is thick. Having said that, though, as of this point in time, a couple of weeks ago, Romesh shaved off his beard and appeared on the Graham Norton show, completely fresh faced, and it was a horribly cursed image. We don't have. If you want to find it, Google it yourself. We're not your nannies. And the final contestant is Tim Key, comedian and poet. A man who, again, in Greg's words, is sort of handsome, but at the same time, sort of not.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the Taskmaster himself, Greg Davis. Most people will know him as Mr. Gilbert in the sitcom The In-Betweeners. It's very obvious in Greg's demeanor as the Taskmaster that he used to be a teacher, and he was a teacher, and it does come across very well. That's basically just what I said. Again, we're professionals. But yeah,
Professionals.
we're so poor we can't even afford a theme tune or royalty-free sound effects. So we'll probably just make them ourselves.
We can't afford royalty-free sound effects. Okay, keep going. Keep going.
Um, yeah, we're basically dirt poor. So then and the final person in the equation is Alex Horn, who, in case you're wondering, is not yet little Alex Horn. That comes a bit later. But for now, he's just Alex Horn, and Alex Horn is the man we owe our lives to because he created the show.
Yes, he did at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I think like 5 years before the show actually started, and he was trying to get it put on for ages.
Yeah, because this show started in 2015. So it's been
This is
going for
2015.
it's been going on for half a decade now, which is impressive.
Yeah, and actually, if we want to talk about someone who the show owes its success to, apparently, and this is according to interviews in the Wikipedia page, Frank Skinner was the first person they signed to do the show, and because he was attached to the venture, that other people agreed to be on it. So we also owe a polite round of royalty-free applause to Mr. Frank Skinner.
Well done, Frank. You're truly you're a great man. You're one
The
in a
oldest
million.
man on earth.
You're one in a million, which because he's from Birmingham, which has a population of 1 million people. Before you laugh, that's not my joke. That's Greg Davis's.
I
I'm not
know.
saying.
I watched that.
Yeah. Okay.
All
So
right. So moving.
wait. Each episode has a
right along,
title. The episode title, which I think we should talk
Melon
about
Buffet.
first. Melon Buffet. Each Taskmaster episode title is something that is said in the podcast. Not what the fuck is wrong with me? Something that is said in the episode. Although we could name our podcast episodes after a funny thing we've said, we don't know what that is yet.
Can we just call this one Joe Upset?
Why do you want to call it Joe Upset?
Because I blew out your eardrums with it, and that was extremely funny.
Oh. No, I'm going to overrule that. We're not going to call it that.
Ago.
I'm sorry. I'm going to overrule that. We'll call it something else. Or will we?
Sure thing. Or will we?
All right. Sorry.
Right. So moving right along, I think I'll introduce the prize task because that's the first thing in the show. In every episode of Taskmaster, the contestants are instructed to bring in a personal item that they own, and it is for the Taskmaster. It is a prize that he will judge, and then they can win it back at the end of the episode. Each winner of each episode gets to win all 5 items from all 5 contestants. In this, the first prize task of the first episode of the first series, we get their most unusual item, as described as unusual by the contestants. So, to start off with, Frank Skinner brings in a pair of grape scissors, which, as it turns out, they are not only for cutting grapes, they also have grapes inlaid on the stems of the
That was
scissors,
impressive. I thought that
which
was really impressive that they had grapes
it
on the
is
start.
impressive, but at the same time, it's a very it's it's interesting, but not unusual.
Hmm.
Then Josh brought in a ball signed by Plymouth Argyle, which
Oh,
is
this
a
was funny.
soccer team,
No, not
and
soccer.
it
It's
and
football. It's football.
okay, listen. I root for football. Do you not know what football is? It's the Cleveland Browns who are going to get their asses kicked because half the teams got COVID. Topical reference, and it is not football in this country, and I was the one who was saying it. Also, I don't know what Plymouth Argyle is. An Argyle is a scarf. Why is a scarf playing soccer?
Okay, this puts a bit of pressure on me as the British host of this podcast. Just to clarify, I know fuck all about, for the American listeners, European football. For everyone else, it's just football. I'm like Greg. I share no interest in the sport whatsoever. But I know that Plymouth Argyle is just like, I'd assume it's a club in Plymouth. If I'm wrong, which I very much doubt I am, please do not attack me. But yeah, it said the football was signed in air quotation marks because there's fuck all
It
on it.
was, but
I've sworn too many times.
They've used disappearing ink, and assuming that it was signed by Plymouth Argyle, and the fact that Josh thought it was cool, I believe this is when Plymouth Argyle was good. If they're not, please email us at the email address we'll tell you about later, and tell us that we're wrong.
Imagine
Up
if we
next,
forget to mention the email address just after all these references to it.
I guarantee you we might. That's not a thing that I would doubt for a second. But anyways, Roisin, who is a very close friend of Greg's and therefore is just
Oh,
basically taking the mickey out of him for the entire series, brought in a picture of him on a bench. Now this is I actually would consider this much more unusual than it is, because she is making fun of him after it was on a trip that he paid for gas and lunch, and therefore she has no room to make fun of him.
yeah, get used to all the American words. Joe says, because I can't
Okay,
keep him on his lead anymore.
What Americanism did I use that you didn't understand? Because I even said taking the mickey.
Well,
That's a British thing.
Well, we don't call it gas; we call it petrol. But I assume everyone else knew what you meant.
Mm-hmm. And
there will be a lot of clashes over different words between British and Americans, because how can we not? And also, it's funny.
It is funny. And then we have Romesh in with a snow globe of his children, which
this was funny as hell, because Romesh is just so unapologetic. Like it. Who would like
Romesh's
something like
entire
that?
existence is being displeased with people who should ostensibly be cared about by him, and he just doesn't. So this is a picture of his kids. It's a terrible picture of his kids inside a terrible snow globe.
Santas, as little Santas. Can't forget that.
I don't think that was Photoshop. I think that was just his wife took a picture of his kids with fake beards on, and that's how that went into the snow globe. And the snow globe apparently has a very poor snow to whatever the hell it is ratio. That means it's actually a terrible snow globe.
In the words of Romesh himself, it's piss poor snow density. In fact,
piss poor snow density.
And on the topic of Christmas things, Tim Key brought in
Reindeer skull. Reindeer skull. Oh my god, that was great.
Yeah, this was so good.
That's exactly how you play this game.
That is how you play the game. And do you know what makes it so great? He said he just said those two words, and there was no further explanation at all. Sorry, I'm leaning a bit far back from my microphone. And that was
Oh,
me
you're fine. And then
straining myself as I
yeah,
sat up in my seat.
and that's automatically the winner of this first task. Greg did not put any more thought into that. And the other winners, just for the sake of completionism, Frank Skinner came in second with his grape scissors. Ramesh came in undeserved third with his stupid snow globe. Roshin came in fourth, and then Josh, because there wasn't actually on his soccer ball, came in fifth. And then I decided that I was going to go through this and score every single task myself
Before you say
because
that,
I
this is the segment of the podcast that we are calling Taskmaster Joe, in which Joe will rescore everything.
I will rescore every task that we do on this show because Emerson mentioned maybe wanting to do that, and I got carried away with it because I took 19 pages of notes on this first season, and I did everything I could. I wrote down quotes. I wrote down timestamps for weird noises that Ramesh made. It's great. But anyways, I
It's
scored
amazing.
this. I scored this somewhat differently. Obviously, Tim wins because how can he not? Frank is in second because they are very
No
cool.
change.
Then I put Josh. I put Josh in third because it's very unusual to have a signed soccer ball that isn't signed. I think that's more
That that
unusual.
that's a very good
And
point.
then
Actually, I
Rush,
really like that thinking.
yes. And then rushing, it's obviously taking the piss out of your best friend. So you've got to get
It
a
really
little
is.
bit for that, but also your friend is in charge of the show. So what the hell did you think was going to happen? That's in fourth. And then Ramesh's stupid snow globe is in fifth because it's not unusual to have cheap tat with your family's face on it. I hate that shit. I hate
I hate
print on demand stuff
I hate it
all
too.
the time. Have you ever done like
Can I
the
tell
Reddit
quick?
Secret Santa stuff? Because
I
I
have
get
not, but
every time I do that, it's always just print on demand T-shirts, and I hate them. I hate them, and I can't say I hate them because that makes me sound like an ungrateful ass to whoever did this. I hate them.
I've got a quick story. I don't know if you'll call this tacky or not, but it's well. What I think is we should
I
for the prize tasks we should say what we would bring in. So completely off the
oh,
top of your head,
absolutely.
right now, what would you bring in? Without any further thought, what would you bring in that's most unusual?
I mean, I've got a functioning Betamax player. I've got 4 of them, but I don't think I'd bring that in without because I might lose it. If I had to bring in something that I was willing to give up, I mean, probably one of my more absurd shirts, or actually, because these people have time to prepare, I would probably intentionally make something unusual. Like I for the reference of our listeners, I wear a large variety of absurdly patterned Hawaiian shirts. I'd probably cut two of them in half and then sew the resulting shirt homunculus together and have that as my prize.
Keep those Hawaiian shirts in mind because they'll come back in a question I'll ask in a second. For this
Mm-hmm.
task, I would probably bring in well, in our living room, or as you'd probably call it, your family room, we have this large oil
Now we use
painting
living
thing.
room.
Living room? I've heard it called family room a couple times, but oh well.
They
Um,
are different rooms for different uses.
uh,
If we
well,
Family room can be any room, living room is specifically one that normally has chairs and televisions in it. And also, I have no room to talk because my family's rooms are named such imaginative things as the middle room, the big TV room, the kitchen, and the little TV room, which had, if you can figure it out, a little TV in it for many years. We're
oh
not,
wow.
I am not a good judge of what rooms should be called.
Oh really?
So, yeah, that's America is a broad country that features many cultural differences amongst its residents. People call them many things. If you have a room in your house that's called something different, please write to us at the email that we will not tell you about.
You'll never find out about this email. You never ever will. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Wait, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We are professional. I'm using the thing is I'm using my Bluetooth headphones and they are beeping because they're low on charge.
Oh no! I'm using Bluetooth headphones too, but I charged them. Also, I have a
I did
microphone
charge
plugged
them.
into my computer because I spent money on this.
Oh, look at you bragging.
But hmm but anyways, so yes, moving while Emerson deals with his headphones,
I never actually said what my
we
unusual
are
prize
going to
task
move
would
on.
be.
Oh, it's an oil painting, I believe
An
you
oil
said.
painting
What
of
is
a
on the oil
topless
painting?
woman. It's an oil painting of a topless woman, and this is in the room in which we actually bring people. When it's not COVID, we bring them into our
That
house.
is incredibly unusual.
And
That's
I don't,
better than
I don't know.
that's better than Josh's stupid soccer ball.
I cannot for the life of me explain why it's there. It's been there for about at least 10 years. Oh,
It's a heritage landmark at this point. Is it grade 2 listed?
uh, mm, I mean, everything's probably grade 2 listed at this point. Um, Sorry, I'm just fumbling around with everything I can. Um,
As he fumbles, let me just talk you through a bit of background on the tasks. The taskmaster assigns a series of pre-recorded tasks to the contestants in an off-site location, which is, as he calls it, at 6:15 in the YouTube video of season 1, episode 1, is actually called the Taskmaster Retreat, which is something that I've never actually heard it called before. Well, I can still hear you, and hopefully so. We're professionals at this. I can still hear you, just so you know. But I imagine that this we might have to cut. We might have to just cut this entire bit out.
One technical difficulty later.
And we're back. Someone got his wired headphones working, and let's explain the task.
do you want to do this or should I?
I was going to explain what the actual, because this is the first time we've seen the Taskmaster house in the show, so I figured I would explain that. It's a very bizarre looking little house on a golf course in Chiswick in London. Am I correct in saying it's Chiswick?
It is Chiswick, and I live near the task. My family home is near the Taskmaster house.
Oh,
Actually,
cool.
there's a fun fact for the day. I've never
Oh,
actually seen the Taskmaster house, but I do know that when the show is not being filmed there, it's just a regular looking house.
okay. Yeah, it's the former groundskeeper's house for a golf course on the banks of the Thames. And
Yeah.
actually, what I would like to point out is that in the first time it is mentioned, it is actually called the Taskmaster Retreat, which is mentioned at 6 minutes and 15 seconds in the season 1, episode 1 YouTube video, which I would also like to point out that we've been talking for an hour and we've gotten 6 minutes into the show. So that's great.
Yeah.
We're going to keep on going. And inside the Taskmaster house, there is a number of rooms that have things in them, typically made so that Roisin can look like an idiot. To start with, we have the lab, which is a room that is covered in plastic wrap so that, because boy howdy is that going to be needed. And in this specific instance, in this first task, we have eat as much melon as you can in 1 minute from when you enter the room. Fastest time win. Bet most melon eaten wins. That is the first task that we are showed to, and this is one of the best tasks, I think, of the entire Taskmaster show to date.
I think, yeah, I agree. There is a moment during this task in which the show properly starts.
Absolutely. So, just to paint the mental picture of this, there is a watermelon on a table in the room. That is it. There are no implements. There is no pre-prepared melons. There is just a round melon on a table. And that's how we start this.
There's just a watermelon on table, and also they have to put on boiler suits.
Yes, white boiler suits for the full serial killer-esque vibe, which is kind of undercut by the fact that Frank somehow looks 12.
I mean, in this country, it's actually against the law to eat watermelon not wearing a boiler suit. So, oh well.
Why is England like that sometimes? But keeping on,
it's not actually. I just said it.
I know. Humor with an OU. I know. But
we have as much chemistry as a chemistry class does.
Which in my case means none. We only learned about chemicals. We didn't do anything. But
I fucking hated chemistry. But oh well, back to Taskmaster. So
yes.
I wrote down a quote. I wrote down a quote from Roisin, first of all. When she's putting on the boiler suit, she says, "Feels a bit kinky," because it's Roisin, and of course she'd say that. But yeah, they start with Josh. Not a lot to say about Josh, I think.
Well, actually, there is a bit to say about this, because Josh is about as close to a normal person doing this as we are going to get. Because Josh reads the task, correctly deduces that there is going to be a watermelon on a table, gets a knife, gets a spoon, and then goes in there, cuts the melon open, and just begins eating out of it with a spoon, and gets 218 grams of watermelons in total, which I believe is 10
or
rats,
10 mice.
10 mice.
10 mice in
and then I'll follow up with a quote. He said,
in AHUHM.
Yeah.
The 10 mice is AHUOM, which stands for Alex Horn Unit of Measurement.
An Alex Horn Unit of Measurement. And then as
we'll probably make
Josh
that sound a bit better.
Yeah. It's an and then as Josh says, as soon as that's shown, I don't know how anyone could do better than that. Which, in fairness to him, the next person to do it is Roisin. And
oh no, sorry, it's Frank next, actually.
Oh, it's Frank and Roisin who are next, and neither of them did do it better.
No, but Frank had a better start than Josh, I think, because what Frank does is he's got his boiler suit on, he goes straight into the room, picks up the melon, and smashes it on the side of the table, and then he literally eats it at a snail's pace. We go from this super fast. He's got the melon, like he runs in, picks up the melon, smashes it down. This happens over the course of like
he breaks it on the edge of the table,
and then he literally eats so slowly. He eats the smallest bits. We go from like this super fast dedication of Frank to just like really slow spooning it in with his fingers as little as possible.
Yeah, I mean, but he still managed to get 179 grams, and Frank is
9 mice.
Or 10 smaller mice. Or 10 smaller mice. But Frank is about how I would have done it, although a little bit faster, because in my mind you have to open the watermelon, and I would have never thought to get tools. So it would have just been like crunch watermelon, eat with hands.
Well, I think we can both agree that we would have done it better than our next competitor, Roisin.
My mom could have done this better than Roisin if she was blindfolded.
So what Roisin does is, yes, I think anyone could. But what Roisin does is she goes into the room, and her first instinct is she just stares at the melon for about 10 seconds before saying, "I need a thing to cut it with." And the first thing she suggests is a hammer, not a knife, a hammer. And then she goes off doing God knows what. You can see Roisin in the studio. She's got her like head in her hands.
You can
because she
hear
just.
banging and clattering as she goes away, which actually, just on my notes, what I have written for her is, oh dear.
I
That's,
think those are the two words you could use to describe Roisin for the majority of this series.
mm-hmm, oh
Hmm.
dear. And yeah, she's walking away. And then, of course, this is the first time that we've seen that Alex is in the lab with the contestants, and he's just holding his iPad, which has a timer on it, and it's counting down from 60 seconds, and it keeps counting, and it keeps counting, and it keeps counting, with 10 seconds left on the damn
Alex
timer.
Alex constantly
She,
looks at the camera as in like because he doesn't know what to do. That's a thing in this episode, and there's a moment later which is one of my favorite moments of the episode. Alex looking at the
uh-huh.
camera, but he does it a lot. The reason, obviously, Alex is there because he's the assistant taskmaster. But I'll tell you this: Alex never actually wanted to be the taskmaster at all. That was never his intention.
He's too nebbish to be the taskmaster.
Yeah, and he said that he wanted to he wanted to just be as hands on as possible, and being the taskmaster meant that he only be there in the studio and just bully people,
Yeah,
which
which
is
Greg Davies does brilliantly.
yeah, it was a fantastic decision to hand the reins over to Greg. But back
Yeah.
to the task at hand. I think it's how many seconds is it before Roshin finally, and I say finally,
54, she slams the knife into the watermelon, cuts a chunk out, grazes it with her teeth, and Alex blows the whistle to signify the 60 seconds are up. She gets 9 grams, or 1 Rolo.
do you know what a Rolo is?
It's a little caramel round chocolate. We have them in the United States, but they're not something I enjoy.
Well, I didn't know they had them in the States because
I,
I haven't seen them for a while here, but they were definitely a big thing in the UK.
they're around. Of my preferred small pocket portable round candies, I prefer Lifesavers, which are like flavored polos, I believe is what you guys have over there. They're round mints with a hole in the middle of them.
Oh yeah, those are polos.
Yeah, the Lifesavers are polos, but they're like fruit flavored, and they're not mints.
Oh, okay. I'm not the biggest
Yeah,
fan of fruit flavored
they have a
sweets. I prefer kind of
they have a
chocolatey
hole.
kind of things.
Yeah, chocolates. I like the sweet stuff, but chocolate's also very good. They have a hole in the middle so that
Hmm.
if you inhale them, you don't die because that way it doesn't block your airways because small children can get
Exactly.
at them.
And fun fact, that's the
And
same reason why Lego minifigures have holes in the top of their heads.
yeah, I also that way you can put them on a spike and then it looks like you've got like a cannibal set of Legos because or like headhunters or something,
Yeah, but I
which I
mean,
have
as in like
definitely seen people do.
when I say hole, I mean like little holes in the top of the head.
Oh, well then maybe they just broke their Legos. Maybe we could edit that out, or we won't. Anyway, moving on
We
to
won't edit a lot out because we're lazy.
moving on to the two people who are actually here to fucking win.
Oh God, yes.
Romesh
And
Ranganathan and Tim Key. And I have in here a I have 6 words to describe both of their things, and it is in all caps, smash the melon, eat like caveman. That is how they approach this.
I'll tell
But
you what
they do
now.
so.
That will be the title of this episode. Smash the melon, eat like cavemen.
Yep, that's it. I might just take a picture of that and send it to you in Discord. But how they did this is they show Tim and Ramesh together. Tim goes in, wails the melon onto the top of the table, and just begins going at it,
Oh yeah.
kind of in a similar way that I would have. But then we get
Oh yeah, I would probably do it.
Mr.
I'd do it like Romesh personally. I think
Yeah,
my approach would be to Romesh. Do you want to explain or should I? Because
I
I mean
was going to explain it because
oh yeah, you can explain it, but I would do it like Romesh.
yeah, Mr. Ramesh Ranganathan, our resident vegan, who apparently is reserving all of his pent up aggression that would have been put out on meat and is now deciding to kill vegetables and fruits. And he apparently does not know the appropriate density of a watermelon, and picks up the melon above his head, turns slightly, and boom! Just on the floor.
The whole thing just
goes
fucking he just
everywhere.
fucking annihilates the watermelon.
He annihilates the melon. It goes everywhere on the floor. And then you immediately cut to Alex Horn looking shocked as Romesh dives onto his hands and knees and begins shoveling floor melon into his mouth. This happens in the span of about 6 seconds, and it's the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my god! I watched Taskmaster for the first time ever when I was in school. Like when I was actually, it was on a school day, and I was in school on my in break time, or as recess, as Americans would probably say. And I was watching it, and when Romesh, he picked up that melon and just threw it straight on the ground. I honestly, everyone in the library where I was watching it turned to look at me as I was in absolute hysterics.
Oh my god. This is how I've shown Taskmaster to both my mom and my sister-in-law, who I wanted to show it to. And it's amazing. It's so utterly this is when the show begins.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The show begins here.
This show is completely irrelevant. They could have just gone intro melon task, 2 minutes in, Romesh smashing it on the floor. That's the show. That is this
if I
show.
recall correctly, you know during the themes, when the theme song plays at the beginning of each episode, where they show little clips. I think the clip of Romesh, the clip of Romesh throwing the melon is not only in that little montage.
It is in every one for the entire season.
It's the first clip you see in the montage.
Yeah. Although
that is so that's so genius.
What really sells it is the smash, is Romesh smashing the melon, and then the immediate cut to Romesh and Tim, who are sitting next to each other on stage, dying of laughter. This is one of the biggest onstage laughs that we will see until like season 5, when Bob Mortimer says that he can poo out of his lower back, and just everyone is
spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen series 5.
It's Bob Mortimer in general is an amazing human being, but that is he mentions that offhand, and it has the entire guests in hysterical laughter.
That is a story for another day, though. We will cross that bridge when we come to it, which is a while away. But so Romesh basically. Romesh nearly dies during this task.
Romesh almost dies is on my notes.
You can see how he's obviously on his knees to begin with.
He throws up at the end of it.
He can't take it anymore. And Alex comes over and he starts petting Romesh on the back, just trying to be like, "You're right, mate."
Yeah.
And
Tim is the same way, because he actually asked at one point, "If I throw up, will you weigh it?" And Alex says yes, so he says, "Well, I better not throw up then," and keeps eating.
Are you a fan of watermelon?
And I genuinely am not. I don't even eat watermelon recreationally. Like I've eaten it on rare occasions. That's part of what I think my biggest issue would be is that I so rarely encounter a watermelon that I don't actually eat it. Like, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
Well, I'd say that because the water, obviously, I don't really like watermelon either, which is funny because we have one in our fridge right now. But there are several items that are synonymous with Taskmaster, and the watermelon is one of them.
The watermelon is one of them, yes.
I think
the sound it makes.
Just like, if I can get a sound bite, which I probably won't because I'm lazy, I'll put it right here. So yeah, that. So do you want to talk about the little controversy, or should I?
if you want to, I can. I actually, when I go through my bit of scoring it, I will go through
So if
how
I
I
want to
scored
talk, so you said if you want to, I can. So even if I want to talk
it. Yeah.
about the little controversy, we'll just do so anyway.
No, yeah. Go ahead and talk about the controversy because it's
So
very funny. I feel like I'm
I
marching
mean,
over you.
considering it's my podcast, I deserve to do a little bit of the talking.
Yes,
We have fun here.
we do.
So basically, what happens is that Tim eats 302 grams of melon, which, to my utter shock and horror, is not given in Alex Horton units of measurement at all. And Romesh eats 301 grams. So it's so tight. I don't think for the very first task of the series, that's very tight, isn't it?
That is a lot of firsts in this episode, actually. Like as a spoiler alert for something that we'll probably get to in like half an hour, is there's actually a tiebreaker at the end of the episode in points, and that happened first episode. That's
Oh yeah, I
astounding.
don't personally. I think tiebreakers should not happen right away. But oh well,
Yeah,
some things can't be helped.
I mean, it's
Um,
surprising if nothing else.
but what happens is basically Tim eats a couple grams of melon after the whistle's gone, and he tries to wink at the camera, but it's a bad wink, as we can see.
It's a slow, lazy blink.
And then,
I'm more shocked that he actually wanted to continue eating watermelon.
oh yeah, just say, I mean, what Romesh said sums it up perfectly, because what Romesh says is after we see Tim eat the melon, Romesh says, "You son of a bitch," which is whoa. And then, and then
Is
this
a consistent refrain for Tim Key throughout this. And if "Oh dear" describes Russian comedy, "You son of a bitch" describes Tim Key throughout this series.
I've thought of something that could describe Romesh, but we'll come back to that in a second. But what Romesh says is, and this made me laugh, is after you just said, Romesh says while laughing, "How can you after that task go, do you know what I fancy?"
Uh-huh.
That's what got it for me. But anyway, Tim is knocked down a bit, and Romesh wins the task, which means
Yeah, because they
Romesh
took off
gets
9.
so Romesh gets 5, Tim gets 4, Josh gets 3, Frank gets 2, and Roisin obviously gets 1 point. I personally don't think Roisin should even get a point for
That's actually what I was about to say. Is if I were scoring this, I would have
that.
given Roisin-
Wait. Taskmaster Joe. Dum.
Oh my god! But I personally would have
I will
given
keep doing
Roisin-
that.
You know what? At some point, we're going to get a real version of that, and it's going to be just you vote coded. But anyways, I personally would have kept the scoring the same, except I would have given Roshin no points because
No plot.
there is a wrong way to eat watermelon, and that is when you spend 54 seconds looking for a fucking knife. Which also, I enjoy that she doesn't know where a knife is, despite the fact that she is in a furnished house, and therefore it's in the kitchen, Roshin. Why are you not there? A lot of my notes are complaining about these idiots sometimes. Because, like, oh my god. Sometimes.
Sometimes it's just
Sometimes. But anyways, yeah, they took Tim down 9 grams, which put him in second place. And that is the conclusion of the first task, which we have gotten to after I'm looking at the Zencaster. This is probably been about an hour, so good for us. We're professionals. Keeping on, we now get to task 2, which I should point out is the first task that is done on location. It is not done in the Taskmaster house.
this is done at a stable. I didn't take the time to find out where the stable was. Do you know where it is?
I didn't even consider to think of it. It is in the Taskmaster stable, presumably next to the Taskmaster pavilion that will show up in many episodes.
Which was right next to the Taskmaster swimming pool
Uh-huh.
and the Taskmaster
And
tennis courts.
the Taskmaster running track.
I think this is a
And
good time or any to talk about contestants' outfits for doing the tasks.
yes.
I mean, there's not a lot to say about them this series. Do you want to take a
But
lead on
they're
this,
gonna
or should I?
well, basically the contestants on Taskmaster, they're not so much in the first. There's a lot that's different in the first season, as we'll get into as we go through this. But in later seasons of Taskmaster, as we'll get into, a lot of the contestants were absolutely ridiculous outfits. Like just
No,
in season. Hmm?
I was going to say no spoilers,
Oh,
but oh
no
well.
spoilers. Well, no spoilers then. You can find out later. Subscribe to the Patreon and you get every spoiler you want.
Subscribe to the Patreon that doesn't exist.
Mail money to my house. It doesn't have to be in my currency. I'll figure out a way what to do with it anyways.
If you see either of us on the streets, which you probably won't, because we don't even know what each other looks. I don't know. I don't even know what Joe looks like.
I think I know what you look like because your Instagram profile picture has a face on it, but
Yeah,
no,
that's me.
I don't.
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't know what Joe looks like. I've only heard his voice.
it'll be a shock when we do a video episode for the first time.
Oh God, yes. But until then,
But,
even our physical identities remain a mystery. But anyway, outfits for this series, not a lot to
yes.
say. Frank, because he's old, wears a suit. I don't think I need to go any further there.
Tim wears a tracksuit, doesn't he?
Yeah, he wears a matching orange tracksuit with a sweatband round his head.
I thought it was red.
I thought it was white.
No, I thought that the tracksuit was red.
Oh no, I saw his tracksuit as orange.
Hold on, I actually have the episode queued up on my computer so that we can observe.
How funny! So do I.
Because we are professionals. Yeah, no, it's a red tracksuit.
Really, it looks
Unless,
orange. It looks orange to me.
Are we going to have the discussion about how colors look different to different people because of how eyes work? Because I really don't want to have that philosophical discussion today.
I'll tell you what. We might not create a Patreon, but we'll definitely create a Twitter. If you think it's red, please tell us on the Twitter that we will mention.
We can set up a Twitter poll for that. You can do that now. I've seen people do it.
I'll probably have to create the Twitter poll as we're recording this now because we are professional. Okay, I'm sorry.
Don't make the Twitter account now. Make the Twitter account after we're done, because then we can do that. Moving on into the actual content of Task 2. Do you?
And by the way, Romesh, Roisin, and Josh's outfits are so boring. We basically have nothing to say about them.
Yeah, they just wore normal clothes because they didn't know that there was going to be anything required for this. As later seasons go on, they get progressively more ludicrous. But do you want to do this one?
I can take this one. Considering you've done quite a bit of talking. Because he loves to talk. So basically, the point of this task is, and this is a good one. This is the first task that I ever saw with my dad. He came in midway through, as I was rewatching the first episode, and he saw this task for the very first time. And the task is paint the best picture of a horse while riding a horse. So before I do anything, I've got a quote from Roisin, which really got me by surprise. I sound so boring in comparison to you when you talk. But Roisin says, I can draw a horse sat on a chair and I can ride a horse in my mind. Do I get points for that? I mean...
Roisin, you get no points at all this episode.
No, this is a bad episode for Roisin.
Yeah, but so the horse that they have to draw a picture of is named Baz, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't know what kind of horse he is, but
I don't know breeds of horses. But to describe Baz, he's I don't even know if Baz
brown.
is. Yeah, he's
Baz is a brown horse
brown
of.
with brown with a mixture of brown and white. It's I don't know why you care, but the head is brown, like the front legs are white. Then there's a brown bit and a mixture of white and brown.
I believe the term is dappled, although I don't know. I did a project on horses in
I,
third grade.
I
That's all I
personally
remember.
don't give a shit what you call it.
And then, but yes, horse has color. Color is brown. Reason why that's relevant. Quote from Tim Key: "How do you make brown blue?" Question mark.
You can actually make brown with blue.
You can make brown with a lot of colors, but
I didn't take GCSE art, but GCSEs are basically just some form of exams. But what you can do is,
yeah,
you can mix if you mix two complementary colors together. So obviously red and green, blue and orange, and yellow and purple. You can make different shades of brown. Fun fact of the day.
I was always informed that if you just muddled enough colors together, brown would eventually happen. But anyway, on with the episode.
So yeah, so all the men were grouped together for good reason, because I personally don't have a lot to say about the men in this task, other than obviously
we should say that the episode began with the photos being shown, and then we see them painted, because
we should do that.
We see 3 drawings that look like a child drew them. We see 1 drawing that looks like a child finger painted it, and then 1 drawing that actually looks really good.
But and also the huge giant mouse.
That is one of the drawings. That is, and I actually wrote in my notes, no skills at all, any of them.
I wouldn't say that. I think the 2 best ones, which were Frank and Romesh, Frank especially, good painting. We will not show pictures of these paintings anywhere, not because we don't have access to them, but because we're lazy. Not the first time we've heard that either. Romesh is a more, obviously it's not a traditional painting of a horse, but there's an interesting flair to it, which I quite liked.
Mm-hmm.
And then Josh, Roisin, and Tim with his big old giant mouse.
His blue
absolutely
mouse
shit
anteater creation. It was terrible. Josh, as a note, hates horses. And then Romesh was actually very happy. This is in an unusual turn for him. He was laughing the entire time. He enjoyed riding the horse.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we actually see Romesh more happy than one might have expected. I've got something to follow up on Josh's comment about his hatred of horses, because this is, I feel like, is an exclusively a thing that British people will get. So Josh Widdicombe, he's born in a place called Devon, which is in the southwest of England. And for anyone who doesn't know, the southwest of England is quite rural. There's not a lot of big cities. There's a couple of smallish ones, but it's mostly countryside. And Devon is one such county with that's mostly fields and stuff. So Josh comes from there. But then when
I live in Ohio, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But
imagine if the southeast of England was scaled up to a massive state.
But then what happens is, and this is actually a bit that I find especially funny because I can relate to it more than most people can, is Frank says, in response to Josh's parents being from Devon, he says, no, they live in a council flat in Ealing. And this is funny for me because I am, no joke, from Ealing, which is right next to Chiswick, which is near the Taskmaster house. And the thing that's funny about that is a council flat is basically just like a big block of flats in an area that's not really, doesn't have a lot of greenery. It's just stereotypically not the nicest of areas. And
Oh no, I'm well aware of that. I've seen enough. The Barbican was another big example of council architecture and stuff like that in London. Although, if you would like
yeah,
your Americanism of the day, a block of flats would actually be called an apartment building or an apartment house. Block of flats means
yeah.
virtually nothing to me as an American. And if I didn't watch an absurd amount of British television, I would have no idea.
Also, I should say I don't live in a council flat, even though I live in Ealing. I live in a semi-detached house.
I I live in I live in a normal house on on land in a town in a small town. So if there are any jokes about
Wow.
Ohio, you'll get a loud laugh from me. It's like
Hmm. You can tell the energy's dropped quite a bit because as it's just gone 11 o'clock as
y-
in the UK
yeah,
as we're recording 11 o'clock in the evening. So I'm still trying to keep energy levels as high as I can.
yeah.
Um,
I think we should just
I've got.
sort of plow through the next few tasks, just because I think we should.
I mean, we're doing okay.
Yeah, but
So like I
we've
said, not
gotten
much to say about the men. Romesh,
and
happiest he's ever looked. But then we come to Roisin. And
uh-huh.
Roisin, as we know, does things very much her own way, with
Which
very little
her own way
regard
is bad.
for.
Her own way is
So
wrong
what
most of the time.
so what Roisin does is, because she's so scared to go on a real horse, she gets put on a mechanical horse inside. That just like it's sort of like one of those things you get in an arcade that a
Yeah,
small
it's
child would go on, and the child would get it.
I
You
think
put a
it's called
coin
a
in, and the horse would just rock around for a bit. It's basically just like that.
I think the correct term is a jockey simulator because they seem to be on a real proper horse farm that did racehorse training and stuff like that. So that was
That
what
could
that
be the
was.
correct name, but that's what it reminded me of when I
Yeah.
saw it. And also, I found out the song that plays as Roshin is painting the horse, because there's a song that I don't want to sing it for in case we get copyrighted, but the song is called
If you can sing it that
Rawhide.
well, you should.
I can't really sing. I'm learning to though. The song is called Rawhide by Frankie Lane.
Okay.
Do whatever the hell you want with that information. I don't care.
Right. But yes, so moving on from that, obviously Roisin is immediately moved to the bottom of the rankings by Greg because she did not actually ride a horse.
What Roshin
And
does though is that she refuses to be disqualified. She says she'll go last, 1 point, but not disqualified, 0 points. And what Tim says in response to this is, "Okay, I'll go third." So
yeah,
they're
there is a
basically
big
like,
argument over how can we get more points, which this will become relevant next episode again.
"Oh yeah, there's a task next episode in which people will be jostling, basically talking about sacrificing money to get first place." But
Hmm.
we're not there yet.
Yeah, we're
So
not there yet.
the final pre-recorded task of the episode, and this is they chose a good lineup of tasks this episode. This is a good one to
Yeah,
end on. Empty a bathtub without removing the plug, tipping, or damaging the bath.
yeah. The complete text is completely empty this bathtub. Fastest wind must not remove the plug, tip, or damage the bath. And completely is important, Roshin, because the word completely is very important.
Do you want to take this one or
And
should I?
I would love to, because I wrote down quotes, I wrote down notes, I had more things
Hmm.
like that. And you sound like you're dying because of
Oh, no,
exhaustion.
I
So I
mean,
think,
I want to keep going, but if we have to record every episode at times like this, I have to basically put my all into it.
yeah. But
But
so it starts with so there's just a bathtub outside of the Taskmaster house, and we get Frank and Josh together, and they use the same trash can to, well, first they try to siphon it. out of the bathtub, which
Which
to
is
quote
like,
Alex Horn, to successfully siphon, you've got to do it a lot better than that. So they're very not good at siphoning things. And they end
can
up
I just
using a trash can.
interject? Can I just
Yeah.
interject? Frank Skinner, he says, I'm not gonna. Oh shit! Sorry, something just fell over. I'll see to it later. But what Frank Skinner says is that ruffians used to siphon petrol. That basically means they'd be sucking petrol into their mouth and emptying it into the tank. That I can't imagine doing
A-
it. That would kill
as a
you.
point of how to explain how siphoning works, they're not drinking it like a straw and then spitting it out. The intent of doing it is that you have to create a vacuum in the tube, which will draw the siphoned liquid out of the vessel you're siphoning it from and into a second vessel. And you get some in your mouth as you suck it out initially, and then it becomes self-sustaining. The problem that these two did is that you have to be below the point where the end of the hose is inside the bathtub in order for it to successfully work, and they're just like trying to suck it up the tube, which as an Americanism, go piss up a rope is a very is an expression that is sort of the same thing, is that it's not very easy to do because physics don't work like that. And
Physics is shit. No offense to
physics
my.
is shit.
I mean, shout out
And
to my physics teacher, but physics was just never really my thing. I mean,
oh,
I'm so glad
I was just
I quit science at one point. I'm so glad I quit.
I was complaining about the general concept as a whole. I mean, gravity is okay, but physics can bite me. And then, um, anyways, so they end up using a plastic garbage can to do this. It's actually the same can both times, which I thought was really interesting that they both managed to find it, considering the plethora of things around them. And they ended up using almost the exact same method after that, which was to evacuate as much water out of the bath using the garbage can. At which point they dried what was left in the bottom using a roll of toilet paper. And Frank
I
did.
wouldn't have I personally wouldn't have used toilet paper to dry
I
that
would have
out.
asked for a towel, but I think it must have
A
been.
couple of
There's a
them did
shed
ask
on
for
the side.
towels. Tim and Romesh definitely asked
Yeah,
for towels.
yeah. Tim and Ramesh, a towel wasn't enough, but there was. I bet you there's a shed on the side of the Taskmaster building filled with a variety of goodies and occasionally a box, and it basically just is full of shit. And presumably there was something in there, or Alex was being cheeky and just handed them the first thing that he thought would do it, but wouldn't be very helpful.
This shed is a
So
very important location in the entire show.
yeah,
This
the shed
shed
is very.
is of paramount importance.
The shed is important. The caravan is important. The garage is very
The
important. The
caravan
whole
doesn't
building is
come in just
important.
yet.
Yeah, but they end up doing virtually the same
There's
method.
the most
Frank does
a location was introduced in the sorry, a new location was introduced in the one-off New Year's Eve, New Year's Day special. Sorry, that they did, which is kind
okay.
of like a dome greenhouse, sort of like the
Oh,
what the Eden
that's super
Project is. If you
cool.
don't know the Eden Project, I think it'll
I'm
be in
aware of
the.
what my mom
I
wants one of
think
those.
this dome will be more featured in Series 11, which is the or the second Champion of Champions, because the most recent full series to air was Series 10, as of the time we're
Yeah.
recording this, which is the series that Ed Gamble covered on his podcast. Ed Gamble, if you want to come on to defend yourself, we are open to have you on. Yeah, I'm still bitter about that, and I'm not going to let it go. But in terms of times, Frank 7 minutes 42, Josh 8 minutes 52.
8 minutes 52, and then we get
Roisin.
Roisin Conati, who begins by not being able to open the door to the shed. That is, and has to get Alex to help her because she cannot open the door to the shed because, god damn it, Roisin. And then she ends up
There's
just giving. She tries to get like watering cans to do this, and then they have holes in them, and so she
I wrote down
decides
a
to use.
quote. Sorry to
Oh,
interrupt. I wrote down a quote from Roisin, and this is. I mentioned before that Alex Horn is a great look at the camera moment. And it's right here because Roisin says it's really deep. And then, sorry, Alex Horn looks right into the camera, very confused, before looking back at Roisin. But it's not like a sneaky side glance, but it's just like a very quick head turn kind of thing. And I really love those because they're such a great comedic tool, because it's just like you're immediately directing your confusion onto the audience, basically.
Yeah. Roisin often redirects people's confusion onto the audience. But anyways,
And then
she decides that she's not going to use watering cans because they have holes in them, and
she uses a
decants to the
saucepan.
kitchen. One
She uses a
saucepan,
one
and not a
saucepan,
big.
and just another note: the music as she's emptying all the water out with the saucepan is so sorrowful and so melancholy that it's hilarious. It's absolute. I just can't. It's like it's basically that one action of Roisin spooning water out, coupled with the sad music, is basically a visual and audible representation of British comedy. Funny things plus sadness is basically what fuels British comedy, because British people have a very morbid sense of humor.
Uh-huh. I never would have guessed. Really, I never would have guessed.
Oh god, I mean,
But
the In-Betweeners is very, very well. It's not depressing, but it's like its humor comes from how tragic it is. Say,
and then
that's why
then
it's so good.
Yep, and that's why Monty Python has multiple times killed off everybody in it. Did you have the salmon mousse? No, too bad. You die anyways. And then,
But we get to Tim and Romesh,
who
and
I'm just going to say,
we know.
I have it written down like this: splash like caveman. They just jump into the fucking bathtub and start going at it like savages. Although actually, Romesh
I mentioned earlier, smash the melon, eat like cavemen for the title. I think we'll just make like cavemen the title.
Like caveman, and then
like caveman. Okay, that's our title.
Yeah.
Like caveman.
Like in full caps, because Romesh actually doesn't get in the bathtub. I spoke too soon. Romesh actually
Romesh, I think, has the best method of clearing out the water.
Yeah.
In this whole task, obviously because it was quick, but it wasn't quickest. But what made Romesh so effective is because his apparatus for removing the water was exactly the right amount, and he had the exact right amount of urgency.
Yeah, and he was throwing water out of it everywhere. Like at one point, they actually have to squeaky clean the camera lens because
that was funny. That was funny
on it. And as someone who has expensive camera gear, I died a little bit on the inside. I would have because it's like, oh, you're gonna have to. That's never gonna come clean.
But that's nothing in comparison. What Romesh did is nowhere near as deserves. I don't care if Tim, but Tim still deserves a round of applause for that, because your first instinct, if your first instinct is to just get in the bath and move all the water out just by flinging your arms around, that in turn is something special.
And, I never would have even.
Sometimes things can't go Tim's way. But what we've learned this episode is that things will not always go Tim's way. They will sometimes, but also they won't. Because
not. Because Tim knocked the plug out of the bathtub in his flailing, which by itself I don't think should have been a penalization. But what happened is that as he's cleaning himself off, because he'd asked for a towel, and that's going to help, and he reaches down like he's cracking his back, picks up the plug from where it's been flung halfway across the garden, scampers back over to the tub, picks the towel out of it, and while he's doing so, replaces the plug in the bathtub. And the only reason you know that he did
By
that is
picking
because
up the towel.
shot. Yeah, and there was a side shot earlier on where you could see water leaking out from where the plug should have been.
What also needs to be noted here is obviously when we cut back to the studio section, what Tim starts to obviously deny the fact that he did any wrongdoing, but in the end he gives in. He leans right up close to Greg and Alex, and he just goes, while slapping Greg on the knee, like he says, "Took the plug out, mate." And then Greg just starts losing his mind, saying, Why did you do that? And why didn't you tell us rather? And then obviously Tim knows because it's cheating. But then what Roisin does is when Greg actually refuses to disqualify Tim, instead just knock him down to last place, aka still giving him a point, Roisin's been more or less the same tone throughout this episode up to this point, I think. She's been very just like, she's been sort of just like very, I wouldn't say still, but she's just been like very contradictory, and even in a sense is still contradictory, but she's really sort of like getting out of her seat to say, he took the plug out. And then Romesh, great quote from Romesh here, he says, actually I don't know the full quote, but he says, "Oh, look at you all getting on your high horse."
Yeah,
which is perfect because it's a callback to the way Roisin fucked up earlier.
Yeah, and so we go through the points here, and it is that Greg gives, obviously, Romesh is the winner because Romesh did it in 2 minutes and 50 seconds, and while Tim did it in 2 minutes 20, he knocked the plug out.
But of course, Tim is disqualified.
No, Tim isn't disqualified. Tim gets 1 point.
Oh no, he's not disqualified. He gets 1 point. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know why I sided with Roisin.
Yeah. And then, because you had a high horse to get onto as well. Anyways, moving on, he goes through, and it's just by time. So then Josh, who did 7:42, is second. Frank, who's 8:52, is third. And then Roisin, who didn't deserve it, even though she did 9 minutes 50 seconds, gets fourth. And if you want to do the score thing, the music theme now, because I didn't say what I was going to score.
Joe. It'll probably be a different jingle every time because I'm inconsistent.
Yep, but for this one, I gave Romesh the win. I put Tim in second because even though he did aid himself by knocking out the plug, he was so far ahead of everyone else that there is no way that he could have come anything lower than second.
Also, I think his sacrifice in terms of getting into the tub, actually, and the fact that he deserved nothing more than solid basic last place is for basically just being braver than everyone else is a bit. It leaves you feeling a bit shallow.
I give him second. And then I give Josh third, Frank fourth, and Roisin no points because the task said that you had to completely empty the tub. What did Roisin not do? Completely empty the tub. They mentioned a meniscus.
That's right.
Do you want to know what meniscus sounds like? Meniscus sounds like you fucking left water in the tub. Get a fucking towel, Roisin Kennedy, and get it out.
I'd say a meniscus is about you leave 10% of the original liquid in.
Y'all know what that sounds like? You left the fucking water in the tub and you didn't completely empty it. So
I just took a sip of water right there in case you're wondering if you heard a weird slurping sound. That was me having a glass of water because my voice is on, my vocal cords are on fire.
This is a bad episode for Roisin because actually I don't think we did the scoring round for the last one with the horse, but I also gave
No,
her no
oh
points
no, we
for
didn't.
that one. I also gave her no points for that one because you have to ride a horse. You have to follow the task, Roisin,
If you can't,
and
get
when
on a
you,
horse, then
then you don't
yeah,
deserve.
I mean, fucking no, I refuse to.
And so
I think anyone would.
and so we get on to the final task of the show, which is a
Sorry,
live task. And
before the final task, I think we should say the scores going into this task because this is crucial. So we have a clear leader in the form of Romesh. Frank is Romesh is on 17. Frank's not far behind. He's on 15. Then it's Tim on 12, Josh on 10, and Roisin, surprise, surprise, is in last place on 6.
mm-hmm. I'm glad that you wrote down the scores because I wrote down what the scores were, but I didn't actually add them up because that would require forward thinking. And
So basically, oh yeah, sorry, keep going.
No, I just didn't think forward.
Oh, you just well, basically the final task, and obviously each episode of Taskmaster, there's the prize task. There's 3 pre-recorded tasks. There'll sometimes be another task in the studio, but there's always a final live task at the end for the audience. And the very first live task of the whole show is put on a onesie inside a pop-up tent. You have to put up the tent, get in the tent, put on the onesie, and then emerge from the tent. It's very tight in terms
Fastest
of the scoreboard.
first wins.
Yeah.
And
so they. Do you want to keep leading? Do you want to lead this one, or should I?
No, yeah.
I think we need to work out. We need to work. I should have saying, if you're still listening to us, we are so thankful. I know this is a poor first attempt at a podcast, but we can only get better from here.
Let's hope we only get better from here. And but yeah,
we'll be more organized for next week. We'll be more organized for next week. But so they put up the tents. Obviously, if I was doing this task, I'd definitely try and put up the tent. I wouldn't try and hide behind the tent, but I would, because some people did do that. But what? Yeah, Roisin, and also Romesh. I think Romesh at one point.
Yeah,
but I think the thing that Tim destroyed it.
And he tried to tackle Romesh from in his tent, didn't he?
Oh god, that was hilarious. I'm quite surprised I forgot about that because the first time I saw it, I was keeled over laughing. I was literally like, I think I was because I was still in the school library as I was watching this. I think I was not. I think my head was thrown back and I just couldn't control myself as Tim and Romesh were just going at each other from inside their tents. Because it was funny because it looked like just these two. It looked like just the tents were attacking each other, like they're just jumping up and down, going completely insane. But then, surprise, surprise, this is kind of like the fairy tale ending for Tim in this episode, because he absolutely destroys everyone in this task. He comes out of the tent incredibly quickly, and although I love how all the onesies are different as well. Tim is in like a Santa onesie. I think it's a Santa onesie. And then I was quite pay attention. Well, except no offense to Frank, but I'm quite surprised. Frank came out in a Union Jack onesie.
Yeah.
I'm quite surprised Frank came second, actually. No offense to him, but he's had like Frank has had like reputations for finishing tasks quite slowly, especially in the latter half of the series. But Frank emerges second, and then it's Josh. And Josh is in a unicorn onesie, which, because of course he is. You could not put Josh Widdicombe in any other onesie. I physically would not allow it.
Okay, yeah, no, we've seen. I advanced the show on my computer to what they're all in. So, yeah,
Roisin's half wearing a chicken onesie.
Is it a chicken? Okay. I thought Josh was in a bunny onesie, not a unicorn. Because he didn't put it on.
It looks a bit like a unicorn to me. But I could be wrong. But if it's a bunny, that's a good one for Josh as well.
Yeah, it's a bunny, I think. Then
Oh,
Roisin
this is
comes out.
really bad on
Not
me because I came in with such conviction that it was a unicorn onesie, and now I just praised them so highly, and now you're. Oh,
we're
God.
we're podcasting professionals, and anyways,
And it's
then
also
Romesh.
11:30 at night where I am.
Hmm. And then Romesh comes out in a military camo pattern, which
Yeah.
is
Romesh may have come out
there's a
last,
joke.
but he doesn't come last because Roisin's was not on properly.
Yeah, they didn't actually say how it was scored, really, because like
Yeah,
they didn't say it out loud. They just added them to the points totals.
it was quite a poorly explained live task, I think, because I
The
mean,
the
very
live tasks the live tasks often don't give numerical point totals. They just add it to the scores. So you find out who came first, but you oftentimes don't see like the second or third place finishers who they are specifically, because I would have disqualified Roisin for not actually managing to get into the onesie, but
she
I
did come
don't think
last. She did
Greg
come
did.
last.
Okay.
Come last. Romesh, even though Romesh emerged from his tent last, he didn't come last because he had his onesie on properly, and because of that, the scores at the end. Tim wins, obviously. Great finish for Tim after a not great episode in terms of to his credibility. This was a good strong finish for Tim. Tim finishes first. Frank comes second. Josh is in third. Romesh is in second, and Roshin's in last. And aside from the prize task, Josh has come third in every single task this episode, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was very interesting to note. But then the scores caused quite a dilemma. So the final scores are Roshin in last place, big shocker on 7. Then it's Josh on 13, Tim on 17, and it's a tie for first place between Romesh and Frank, who are both on 19. And this is, obviously, we alluded to this earlier. It's a very weird that the very first episode ended on a tie break, excuse me. What were your thoughts on this?
I think that it's very unusual, but it also does fuel my running conspiracy theory that statistics are actually just numbers in a trench coat fucking with you. Because of course this would happen. Why would it not happen? They could have done it in many different ways, but it's of course it happens like this. So so the tiebreaker round is they clear to pull back the curtain on Taskmaster, they film a lot of tasks that don't make it to air because either someone isn't funny or they do it wrong or they can't get everyone to do the
Yeah.
same thing. And they have a bunch of tiebreaker tasks in case this happens, which personally I think they should just have a second live task immediately where it's like something insane like punch each other in the face, but because that would just be really funny. But I'm also American, so I like violence, and therefore should not be counted in a British testing pool.
You think they should all
Meanwhile,
bring guns to the shoot of Taskmaster?
I mean that is what a shoot is, but
Unentirely intended. Gun. This shoot.
that, yes, we're punny. There we go. And but anyways, the tiebreaker round is a much more pedestrian game of hide and seek, in which Alex is hidden somewhere on the grounds of the Taskmaster estate, and
Estate.
is required to be found by Frank and Romesh, which Romesh sets off at a fairly rapid clip as he looks throughout the house and then around the grounds, and he eventually finds Alex having tea behind a bush. Frank moves off at a much more plodding pace, but
Frank's
somehow,
composure allows him to keep his head more. And he finds Alex. They both find out Alex is in the same place for both because it wouldn't be fair if he wasn't.
yeah.
But he's got a nice little table of some tea and biscuits, which I thought was very quintessentially British. I think if any American would see that shot, they'd say that's very British.
Oh yes, high tea behind a bush. Although I am a I enjoy having large catered meals brought to me wherever I go. So perhaps I once catered a friend's car breaking down, which is a very funny story that doesn't really matter to this at all. So, but
So
Frank
sorry,
found
Frank found
Frank.
Alex after 1 minute 50, and Romesh found Alex after 2 minutes 27.
Yes,
And
and
I think, sorry, I have a point. This, I think, is what sparks my belief that Romesh Ranganathan is the unluckiest contestant in. Did I just say that? I'll
did
censor
you
that.
just say this is not?
I'm
This is
sorry.
Taskmaster.
I'm sorry. I was talking to someone about it earlier. We'll cut that out. That's not making it to edit. And this is why I think that Romesh Ranganathan is the unluckiest contestant in Taskmaster history. Because, well, you'll find out why. But Romesh, we'll see as we watch the series that Romesh is the epitome of unlucky when it comes to this show. It's been a long night. You'll have to forgive me. We've
No, he is deeply unlucky in this show, and the reason why, after a while, is that he just becomes so belligerent about his own failings and the failings of other people that it's funnier to see him lose than it is to give him an ounce of sympathy and let him win.
That's British
Because
comedy for you.
a good chunk of this show is of this first season is Ramesh complaining with great vitriol exactly how he has been let
Romesh
down
is a
by inanimate objects.
Romesh is a very passionate man. He will do whatever the fuck he wants to get to where he needs to be, and we'll see at the start of next episode just how, also not only how unlucky Romesh is, but how far he will go to defend his position and his beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's been a long night for me. It's coming on midnight for me here. That's why
God.
I want to thank. Even though I'm the host, I want to kind of thank you for taking the reins on this particular episode.
Yeah, no
And
problem, man.
I
And
feel like on the comments, people will be all like, "Oh, Emerson should leave. This Joseph guy is so much better, and also it's more entertaining for an American."
I hope not, because that would be incredibly disrespectful, listening audience. Do you hear that? It would be incredibly disrespectful. If you don't do that, I will speak an entire episode directly into the microphone as loud as I can.
Shit.
I said that quietly. Did that still blow your ears out?
Well, it didn't, but it was such a strong transition. It wasn't as bad as before, but I didn't expect it.
If you're still listening to this, thank you so much for supporting us in whatever the hell it is we're doing now.
We can't thank you enough. This was our very first rodeo. It didn't go perfectly, but we hope to get better. Should we finally reveal the email address that we hyped up so much?
And you made the email 2 minutes before we started this. I don't know what it is.
So the email is ytsnpod, as in pod as in podcast, at gmail.com. I repeat, ytsnpod at gmail.com. If you want to send us any questions, please send it there. We will, and please sign them with any name you wish. We will any questions we get, we will answer. And if no one sends us any questions, we'll probably make them up ourselves and use fake names because we can't afford to look sad.
I mean, speak for yourself. I can afford to look like whatever the hell I want. I've got money and a job.
Well, we can't afford royalty-free sound effects.
We can't afford royalty-free sound effects. We can't afford emotions. We can't afford anything. This is...
In case we didn't make it clear, the winner was Frank Skinner. He goes off with all the shit.
He goes off with the grape scissors, the terrible snow globe, and I want to take a special point to. Yes, except for the soccer ball, which he throws off of the royal box that these are all put in, and it hits an audience member on the head. I
God.
genuinely
I never
attached
actually noticed that.
If you stick around, I'm looking right now at the video. It is at like, as the credits are rolling, at like 44 minutes and 21 seconds. This is the last 20 seconds of the video. He throws the soccer ball, and it just whacks someone on the head. Yeah, bonk. That is the last thing before they cut to the Dave logo. That is the last 2 seconds of the thing. And it just wallops someone on the head. It's great. It's so funny. I did not notice for like.
Oh God, it really just it gets me every time. In terms of the Patreon that we talked about, we don't actually have one. That was all a big ruse for the time being. And
if you would like a Patreon, please let us know at whatever the hell the email address was, and we will, if there's enough demand, we will set one up. Otherwise, this will be a really funny running gag. But
also,
you know,
we don't have Twitter yet, even though we alluded to it. If you think whether Tim Key's jumpsuit or tracksuit rather, I'm completely losing my marbles, is orange or red, just say in any emailed questions that you have. And again, if we get no emails, we'll make it up.
Yes. And we should probably post these to YouTube, because that would be a smart idea, as like to attract the YouTube audience via the algorithm. So leave a comment there on YouTube if you're there. If not, pretend that we're on YouTube and pretend to leave a comment, because
do you want to plug your personal socials?
I mean, we can at a later date. Because it'll eventually come up at some point that I take pictures of electronics in like on Instagram, but it's not relevant now.
All right.
Maybe next season. That's a next season stretch goal. Unless you, the listening audience, would like me to talk for 45 minutes about Laserdiscs.
If you guys want to know our personal socials, such as our Instagram accounts, please just say. We won't say them for the time being. Maybe next episode we'll let you know. But until then, you have the email. Please submit any questions. No Twitter, no Patreon. Maybe the Patreon might not exist. Oh God, this has been a total disaster from start to finish. I mean, my for those of you who aren't aware, I was using Bluetooth headphones and they died halfway through recording. So now I'm using wired headphones. I'll be sure to be better prepared next time. Bad Emerson.
Yep, and I'm gonna have to charge my my Bluetooth headphones, which didn't die. So we can't afford royalty-free music, but we can afford headphones and microphones. Right. That is. Can we afford avocado toast, or are we something else?
We're not that. We're not big enough pricks to be talking about avocado on toast.
You know, I hate avocado actually.
But I've never tried it. But before I absolutely lose my mind and fall asleep,
go to bed.
Oh yeah, I'll go to bed. Just one more time, the email is ytsnpod@gmail.com. Send us all your questions there. I've been Emerson.
I've been Joe, and we are both very thankful that you stuck around for this entire
shit show.
I don't even know how long this is, because
shit show of a podcast.
We spent 25 minutes before this dicking around trying to get the intro right. So I'm going to hit stop recording on Zencastr now, and Emerson's going to edit this maybe in the morning.
You'll have to say.
Yeah, I'm going to put your email address and the email address of the podcast in the Discord chat, and I will send it your way.
All right.
Right. So I'm going to hit stop recording. And
bye.
Bye.